This video covers binding data to DOM elements. The structure of this video is as follows. D3 enter selection revisited. D3 visualization pattern revisited. D3 append operator revisited. Binding data to DOM elements. The summary. Alright, let's get started. D3 enter selection revisited. The enter selection returns the placeholder elements for each data element for which no corresponding existing DOM element was found. Note, the enter selection method is only defined on selections returned by the data operator. Also, the enter selection only defines the append, insert, and select operators. Once one of these three operators has been used, you can modify the contents of the selection. First, let's insert a paragraph element. Using a new barebones HTML file, we select the body and insert a paragraph element. As you can see, the paragraph element has been inserted into the HTML document. Next, let's attach an array of 3 numbers to this paragraph element. This is the enter selection reference from the D3 update selection. You can see the placeholder JavaScript object for the data element for which no corresponding existing DOM element was found. This is where the second data point, the number 2, was stored. Next, we review the D3 visualization pattern to see where we are and what we still need to cover. D3 visualization pattern revisited. This selects the elements that you are going to use, attaches data to them, and creates them on the screen. We saw this pattern in the bubble chart. We saw this pattern in the sunburst partition. We saw this pattern in the choropleth. And lastly, we saw this pattern in the click to zoom via transform map. As you can see, no matter how varied the visualization, the main pattern is select, data, enter, and append. Next, we review the append operator. D3 append operator revisited. The D3 append operator appends a new element with the specified name as the last child of each element in the current selection. Each new element inherits the data of the current elements in the selection, if any. This is important because in the case of the enter selection, this allows the appended elements to inherit the data of our placeholder elements. Then, it returns a new selection containing the appended elements. Next, we cover how binding data to DOM elements happens. Binding data to DOM elements. First, we create a variable with the update selection. Using a new barebones HTML file, we define the update selection variable as a selection of all the paragraph elements that we have attached the data elements to. Next, we look at the enter selection to see the placeholder elements. You can see all of the placeholder JavaScript object elements created to hold each of the data points. Next, let's append a paragraph element to the enter selection. This command appends a paragraph element for each of the JavaScript object placeholder elements in the enter selection. As you can see, this has appended 5 paragraph elements to the HTML document body. It attached them to the HTML document body because that was the initial selection we did. Now, let's take a look at what is inside of the paragraph element variable. As you can see, the paragraph element variable contains an array of length 5. When we click into the array, we can see the 5 paragraph elements. When we click into one of the paragraph elements, you can see the data point that has been attached. Each paragraph element now contains the data points that were in the initial data array. Each paragraph element inherited the data property from the JavaScript object placeholder elements. Note, this works with any element, not only paragraphs. Let's try it this time with HTML div elements. First, we define the update div selection. Then we look at the enter selection. Next, let's append the HTML div elements to the enter selection. As you can see, this has appended 5 div elements to the HTML document body. It has attached them to the HTML document body because that was the initial selection we did. Finally, let's take a look at what is inside of the div elements variable. When we click into the array, you can see the 5 div elements. When we click into one of the div elements, you can see the data point that has been attached. As you can see, each div element now contains the data points that were in the initial data array. Each div element inherited the data property from the JavaScript object placeholder elements. And that is how you do basic binding of data to DOM elements when those DOM elements did not exist before. First, you do a select, then you attach data, then you select the enter selection from the update selection, and finally, you append elements so that each element inherits data from the placeholder elements in the enter selection. The summary. This video covered the D3 selection revisited, D3 visualization pattern revisited, D3 append operator revisited, binding data to DOM elements, and the summary.